In the psychology of the modern civilized human being, it is difficult to overstate the significance of the house.
Anatomy is a first-person experimental horror game where you collect tapes for a tape recorder in an unknown home. The game is available on itch.io. There will be spoilers in this video. Atmosphere. The game's atmosphere is effortlessly intent, with the extremely dark and limited distance to your vision making exploring rooms very intense. You can't see too far ahead of you, and so much of the game's dread is through exploring the house, waiting for something to happen. This only really gets worse as the game goes on, as the anticipation keeps building for something until the game seemingly ends. It has several false endings and starts up again to reveal a deteriorated version of the house, which is more foreboding than the previous one, as it feels like reality is breaking down around you.
Since as early as the Neolithic era, humankind has defined itself by its buildings. Buildings for worship, buildings for socializing, buildings for protection, even buildings for the commemoration of the dead. But of all the structures that mankind has invented for itself, there is little doubt that the house is that which it relies upon most completely for its continued survival.
The atmosphere shifts to paranoia, and the house feels like it's becoming more hostile and somehow shrinking. The voice on the tape recorder explains the concept of the house being similar to that of the human body, which only yet again builds more dread as they explain what body part each room of the house represents, and each time you return with a cassette.
Why do human beings of our modern age foster this tremendous sympathy?
The voice on the tape recorder explains the concept of the house being similar to that of the human body, which only yet again builds more dread as they explain what body part each room of the house represents each time you return with a cassette. The atmosphere is incredibly thick with dread, anticipation, and it doesn't end until the game does. It feels like the house is alive and you're trapped inside. That's one Harry Mason. Scares. Most of the fear is generated by the atmosphere, and there aren't many traditionally scary things. The most frightening thing is the game suddenly closing itself, which is a fun little trick that worked every time. In the second loop, the voice on the tape recorder becomes more and more distorted, and it's deeply unsettling to hear on top of the feelings provided by the atmosphere. The house also rapidly deteriorating. There are a lot of glitches that could be frightening based on when and how you experience them, but that's about it. Ultimately, through the intense atmosphere, even reading the text at the bottom of the screen telling you where the next tape is can fill you with dread. It's difficult to separate the atmosphere from the scares as they both become co-joined the longer the game goes on. That's two Harry Masons. Sound design. There's not much to the sound design, with no real music, just an eerily quiet, dark house. The voice on the tape recorder sounds fantastic, and the reading of the line sounds factual but menacing in the way that the person doing the reading almost seems to revel in their explanation. As the game progresses to the next loop, there's new dialogue for the tape recorder, but due to the level of distortion, it's sometimes difficult to understand what they're saying. This is probably deliberate, but it's something I'd like to have heard. In the final part of the game, it's also pretty difficult to tell exactly what the voice is saying, which is again a shame. Whilst I appreciate what the game is trying to do, there are problems with how much distortion covers up what could have been interesting dialogue. That's still two Harry Masons.
Its usefulness no longer satisfies them.
Gore. There's no gore, and the game didn't need any. That's three Harry Masons. Story. There's no real story to the game. It's unclear what the player character is doing in the house, and they have no personality to speak of, neither does the voice on the tapes. It's clearly not important to the overall experience though, but due to the lack of explanation to certain parts of the game, it does feel a bit less of a mystery and a bit more of a missed opportunity. Making the final score 3 out of 5 Harry Masons. Anatomy is a really interesting and intensely frightening game that really feels like an egg that needs to be cracked to get the most out of it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.